Kris Krohn here with Limitless TV, and so excited for our topic today. We're talking about symptoms of addiction, and I've got on-house resident expert Wileen Benson mentoring with us today.
Thanks for letting me join you, Kris.
Awesome. Excited to hear what she has for us, and I've saved a special bonus question at the very end that I think you're going to want to wait and watch out for. What a treat we have today. And Wileen, I'm so excited because what you do with Warrior Camp, how you take men and women and work with them to help them overcome addiction, it's powerful because we've got this one life to live, and if we're really getting distracted, that's often what an addiction is. That distraction can really take us out of the game fast. And we're wondering, why aren't I getting the results I want, or why aren't I getting the raises, or growing my family, or having this or that? And it comes down to these addictions. Can you just start off with this concept of what really is an addiction?
Kris, I appreciate you asking that because I think there's really a misunderstanding about what addiction is. A lot of people look at the substance or the behavior and they consider that the addiction. But the way that I describe addiction is any compulsive behavior, so that's a really key part of it. If it's a compulsive behavior that there's a constantly going back to the same thing, that also causes disconnect. And specifically disconnect from God, from highest self, from relationships that you really want to be close, people that you really super want to be close to. So disconnect with the closest things, the hobbies, the things that you love, if it's a compulsive behavior and it's causing that disconnect from those things that you love.
I love that. I mean, that's really powerful. A disconnected compulsion. It's interesting that right now I've got a rule in my life, which is stay off of Netflix. And the reason why is because I can totally zone out and binge on a favorite series. And I'm not going to judge and say that that's an addiction or bad, but I actually do know when I cross a line and I'm doing it to the point where I'm choosing out of maybe family time or doing something productive or useful. And I know that from my past, I used to have a food addiction. And then it was interesting that I would go to the store and I'd buy a whole bag of Reese's, and Clem would just watch me in less than an hour down the entire bag. I mean, something that might sit in your shelf for like a month. And like a year and a half ago, I had a powerful experience where I actually banned Reese's from my life. And I'm just telling you right now, German chocolate or not, there is no candy. There are no sweets if there are not Reese's. And it totally changed everything because I don't know what Reese's, I don't know what you are putting, I don't know what addictive substance you're putting in that peanut butter with those cups and that chocolate, but man, and when I would down it, I would often really kind of zone out. I wasn't connecting, I wasn't really being super social. There's nothing in and of itself wrong with Reese's, just like in and of itself, there's not necessarily something wrong with binging, but for me, at a point, there is.
And so I want to actually maybe take that to the next level.
Can I sit on the chaise lounge here and have you do some work on me?
I want to share with you maybe where you are getting disconnected on that particular thing. So maybe it's not so much that you're disconnecting from other people, you're over here hiding and downing your Reese's, so you're not connecting with people.
Sorry, it's a funny image, right? Leave me alone.
But is that kind of behavior connecting with your highest and best self, like this amazing body that we've been given and what it's capable of? Is that kind of of what you're putting in your body, is that helping it to be the highest and best that it can be?
Well, and that was the weird part, is I would blink and then I'd see 25 wrappers and it would be like, did I just slip through time? What happened? How I didn't really do all that, and it was unconscious. And it wasn't in a positive way. It wasn't building me. I actually didn't feel good. I actually would feel sick after eating all that. So I knew that it wasn't good for me.
I want to share one other thing that what you just said about, wow, did I just, did time warp or whatever, or there's these 25 wrappers. There's also a bit of an escape that happens with an addiction. And so what I want to share with you on that is that the point or the trigger that takes someone to an addiction is usually some sort of fight or flight response. there's something that happened, somebody said something, I'm under stress, whatever it is, that in my world looks like I'm going to die if I don't get this taken care of. And so we're in this fight or flight response. And so when we get to a point of we're not fighting anymore, we've made the decision that I'm giving in to this addiction, then the only other option is to flight, to escape. And so the addiction takes us to some sort of an escape.
It's really quite survival mode, isn't it? Reptilian part of the brain
definitely.
that says, hey, caveman, there's a saber-toothed tiger in the bush, and I got to learn to run. And it's amazing how a lot of that energy is still inside of us today. So that's actually a really, really good clue when we're talking about symptoms of addiction, that if someone has a compulsion that creates disconnect or shows up in the way of hiding or running or fleeing or escaping, that's how you might know that you might be suffering from an addiction. I wanted to ask you.
I just want to add one more little piece about that caveman mentality, because in caveman times, if you were rejected from the tribe, if you did something that was counter to what the tribe, what was okay, if you got rejected and you had to live on your own, there was a very high likelihood that you would not survive. And so that survival mode would definitely kick in. And like it or not, we still a lot of times operate under that mentality that if I'm rejected, if I'm ugly, if I'm fat, if I'm, not seen as the most social person or whatever, if I'm shy, whatever it is, then there's some form of rejection, perceived rejection that might happen, and I could die if I'm rejected from my tribe.
And it's also like there's a downward spiral with that one, because depression can become a part of that addiction process. Convincing yourself with your limiting beliefs that you're not seen, or that you're not accepted, or that you're alone, or that you can't be with people, or that people don't like you, or that you're not special, or that God doesn't love you, or that there's something wrong with you. And all of those ideas right there, I've noticed that with addiction, some of the symptoms are a lot of limiting beliefs. And what they do is, if I gain 10 pounds with my addiction, if it's weight related, then just let a passage of time happen with this addiction, and 10 pounds can turn into 100 pounds, right? And so addictions over time, they produce worse and worse results, very much maybe like a substance abuse or a heroin addict, ultimately could eventually die from that experience. One of the saddest moments of my life was being in Germany on a 2-year Christian mission, and I met a lady in the park who was crying, and she had her child in a stroller, and I said, what was wrong? And she told me, she had been using heroin, and just a few days earlier, her husband had passed away because she was high, and then she missed the injection dosage or whatever, and accidentally killed him. And it's just interesting that that's an extreme example, but addiction with time usually doesn't yield the same results, but it seems that often it can make our lives worse. I mean, you look at meth addicts over time, and they get more gaunt and more thin and more unhealthy. And so it's an important conversation. How do you know if someone really has an addiction?
When some of these symptoms that we've just talked about, the disconnect, that's probably one of the biggest clues. I know with my own kids, that's the one thing, if they're not talking to me, if they're not connecting to me, if I'm not noticing that they're wanting to be around the family or whatever, I know there's something wrong. And maybe it's not an addiction, maybe just something was said and they just want to hide in their room for a little bit, and that's okay. But that would be one of the clues, is if there is that disconnect.
There's a lot of judgment, I think, on this whole concept of addiction, right? There's a lot of people that feel like outcasts, or that they're broken, or they've done something wrong. How do you support someone that may be having an addiction? What if it's a loved one, or a child, or a spouse?
I would say that connection is the biggest key. A lot of times with addiction comes shame. And not only, is somebody feeling shame maybe because they are engaged in something that they don't feel like they can control, and that they're getting, but then they're also getting maybe some shame from outside. They're getting some sort of judgment or negative feedback or whatever because of what they're doing. And a lot of times that perpetuates the disconnect. There's not safety, there's no safety perceived in being able to go talk to somebody and actually expose what's going on so that I can maybe get some help. So I would say that's probably the number one thing, is to create a safe space that, regardless, that unconditional love that we talk about at Limitless and that I feel like is so important. It's just such a key for us having a really close and bonded family, society, tribe, whatever, creating that safe space.
Beautiful. Well, this has been such helpful information, really talking about the symptoms. You've been super direct, and I really think spot on with what that looks like. If it's okay, I want to just throw a bonus question at you for our viewers. For someone that might be watching this, and they might be watching this because they know someone that has an addiction and they're looking for symptoms and helping understand, but we might have someone here that themselves is, I think addiction is actually a part of all of our lives in some way, shape, or form at some point. For those that might be watching this and thinking, I actually think that I have an addiction of some type, it's unhealthy, and I'm hiding, and maybe I want some help. What advice would you give to them?
The lowest vibration word that I know of is shame. The highest vibration I know is gratitude. And so if there's some way that you can find gratitude in whatever it is that you're experiencing, rather than running away from it, rather than being afraid of it, that if you can look at it and say, wow, I'm not living in caveman times. If there's some sort of rejection, or if if I open up and share with somebody, I'm not going to die. If you can get past that and actually open up and share with someone, but even before you do that, if you can find some gratitude in the situation that you're in. I know it might be hard or difficult to do that, but I promise you it's there. There's gratitude in every single circumstance. And there's also accountability. And so if you can find some accountability in what you possibly did to create the situation, and then find gratitude, and then the next thing is to reach out. Connect with somebody that you feel like you can trust and that can create that safe space for you. And if you don't know anybody, then come to Limitless, because we got a whole tribe of people that are full of unconditional love.
I just got to echo how important that is that if you feel alone in any way, shape, or form in your life, and you feel disconnected, and you don't even necessarily know how to connect very productively with those around you, then come to our 3-day Limitless event. You're gonna find an entire tribe, a massive tribe, thousands of people that regularly come together on a monthly basis to see you for who you truly are, to see the greatness that is inside of you, and to show you how to reconnect productively with us, with yourself, so that you can find the help that you're looking for. Wow, a lot of useful information, and honestly, a lot of things that I didn't know, but so helpful. Wileen, thank you for taking the time to come on over today and to be a part of today's video and teach us from your wealth of knowledge. I know you've been able to help countless individuals now with this information, and I totally want to invite you to subscribe. You're going to see more of Wileen on our channel. She's got her channel, and then for sure, come out to Limitless. Click the link below and have an experience to see what it really looks like for society to get together on terms where we are at our max productivity and max ability to see each other, enjoy, and celebrate the differences that we all have and share.